We're in our third season of Southern Entrepreneur, and we'd like to thank our sponsors, Jason Hunter Design, BMW of South Atlanta, Cooper Lighting, and Cylon.
If you enjoy one of these videos, send it to someone that can find it useful.
I grew up in South Texas, born in College Station. Parents, we lived there for 2 years, so I'm essentially from San Antonio. I grew up in San Antonio. It's what I call home. Texas is a big part of who I am. Big state, big personalities is very much the case. I feel like I've got somewhat of a decent personality, good person. For the summer of between turning 14 and 15, I had a collection of yards that I would cut every 2 weeks at, it was $10 a pop. My work history is pretty short. I worked at Burger King when I was in high school, but I had certain things I wanted and it wasn't going to be given to me. I had to earn it. Did a short stint after Burger King at Dave & Buster's. Met a guy there and we're at his house one evening. Everybody was over from the office or from Dave & Buster's. He was having a little party and he pulled out his Marine Corps notebook. And it was pictures of him shooting and blowing stuff up and drinking and partying, and he was telling me how great it was and how important that was part of his life. And I think I left that party that night and I went down to the recruiter's office and told him I wanted to get the hell out of San Antonio. I joined the Marine Corps, spent 5 years there, got to see a good bit of California, was in Japan for a little bit. I did some time in Huntsville actually, and then I got stationed here in Atlanta as my last duty station. You look back at it when you're younger and you're like, oh man, I've missed the wave, I've missed all these different opportunities, my timing's off, blah blah. My timing was never really off, just didn't know that was on. Because there were certain things at that particular point in my life that I thought were going to go a certain way. They didn't go that way. No matter how hard I tried to make it happen, it just didn't work out that way. But the one thing that kind of put the ball in motion was one of the gunnery sergeants there in Japan. He and I hit it off. And I wanted to go to Atlanta because I wanted to go to Georgia Tech. I really was driven towards getting my electrical engineering degree. I knew I wasn't going to be a lifetime Marine. I knew I was going to do my one stint, get out. I really joined it to travel and then get the GI Bill so I could go to college. So he worked with me, got me stationed here in Atlanta, which most first-timer or first contract Marines don't get. It's usually reserved for people on their second or third contract. I got stationed here with an I&I group, an instructional, I forget what the other I stands for. Basically, I was with a reservist unit training the reservists. I remember that summer I came here and I was going to sign up for fall. I went down to Georgia Tech and parked and went in the administrative building. I said, I want to sign up for classes, and said, okay, well, here's the brochure, and here's all the classes, and here's what you got to do to get in the campus. I opened up that brochure, and it was 10 grand a semester. You know, like, I'm out of here, see y'all later. But that led me to Southern Poly, so I started going to school for Southern Poly. I think that was like a year or two before my contract was up, so I'd go to school at night when I was in the Marine Corps. I would miss certain days because of training and stuff like that, but started working on my electrical engineering degree with Southern Poly. I always had some kind of plan in motion that I wanted to go from one thing to the next thing. I felt very driven as to what I wanted to do. I met my wife about 9 months before I got out of the Marine Corps. So my intention was to get my engineering degree, go back home and start my career as an engineer in Texas. Met my wife, and I guess the rest is history. It's kind of really what put that whole thing in motion. My wife's sister worked with my old boss's wife at Owens and Minor. And I had this big dilemma of what two jobs to take between getting out of the Marine Corps and trying to finish up my degree, because I was at that point a year or two into my degree and I still had another 2 or 3 years to finish my degree. And it was between working for a UPS maintenance company, which I would have been traveling all over the Southeast at a moment's notice to repair UPSs or things of that nature, or I was going to go with this other company, which was my previous company, as an electrician. So I started out in the field, and they had offered me initially to come in as an assistant project manager, and I told them I didn't know jack nilly about electrical or codes or any of that stuff. So I really felt I would have been better off going into the field to understand what's involved from a electrical perspective. But I knew in the back of my mind that's not where I was going to be permanently. I knew that I wanted to get into the office and earn my keep that way. So about a year I spent in the field, and that was about 2004. So 2005 I came into the office. At that particular point, working all day and then going to school all night was rough, and I was young, and I think we were newly married at that point too. So at that particular point I was kind of on the fence of, I was really enjoying the construction side and not getting a whole lot of exposure to the engineering side. I changed my degree because Southern Poly had a construction management degree, so I changed it to construction management. So I started school of 2002 and completed in 2011. So I was on the 9-year program. And the financing class is where it kind of struck a chord with me, and talking about how do you start your own business? What do you got to do? What's cash flow? What's, over and under billing, all this other stuff that's related to construction accounting. And I really spent a lot of time with him after classes, talking to him, picking his brain. I had a good friend of mine who I'm still friends with, and we're still connected about how we started our own thing. But that was 2011. I started this company in 2016. So I had 4 or 5 years of kicking things around, thinking about it. What's the best time to do it? How do I go about it? I was approached by a group of guys about investing into me. And that's really, I knew I wanted to do it, but when those guys approached me about it, it's either, get off the pot or do what you're going to do. They were going to give me the money to get it off the ground and get it rolling. But I've asked those guys, I've asked my buddy, like, what is it that made y'all attracted to what I do? Because they were intrigued because of my personality, and it came down to, not that I'm just a talker and I'm a fast talker or whatever. It was, I did what I was going to say I was going to do, so I stuck by what I said. My word is the only thing I can take to my grave. So I always try to preach that to my guys is, do what you're going to say and do it well. So I've always kept my word on things. Being involved in their projects, they saw the work ethic, or the work ethic and the work I would put into their work. So, or to their jobs. So theirs was more professional. They would say, we know what you're capable of. We've seen what you're capable of on running projects. Just a matter of you getting out the door and doing it for yourself. The other answer I got was from my roofing buddy, and different level, but kind of the same answer, as he saw day in, day out that I was there every morning. I put in the effort, I put in the extra effort that I could. So it was the same thing, and there was a good personality. They felt like I was a trustworthy person, and that I had the work ethic, that I was going to put in the time and the energy. So they approached me. I went to the banks first. Banks were unsuccessful. I went to 2 or 3 different banks and showed them my business plan and how much money I needed to get off the ground. That didn't work, so I went back to the first people that approached me, and they were gambling with their retirement money and got cold feet over that. So I went back to the guy that was really kind of pushing me the hardest the whole time along, my buddy at the gym. And he's like, I told him, I said, well, I've been rejected, so tell me what you can do for me. Because at that point I made up my mind, I'm ready. I put in the time. I know I could be successful because I know what I'm capable of. And I started this thing with $40,000, and I think this year we're on track to do $15 million after 6 years. So I started with the idea of hitting 700 the first year was my business plan. We did 1.3. Now, granted, this goes back to the whole timing thing I was talking about earlier. I couldn't have picked a better time to go out on my own. It was 2016, and the economy was just getting ready to start raging and going crazy. We doubled it the second year. We were up 3.1. Doubled it again the third year. That was 6.1. And then we grew a third and did 9 in 2019.
We couldn't do our videos without our sponsors, so here's a couple of lifestyle videos and then we'll be back to the program.
That is, but Vantix Electric is a construction company in a sense, but we specialize in the electrical trade. So Vantix Electric basically builds the infrastructure on say you walk into a Walmart or a Best Buy or something, all the lights, all the conduit wire receptacles that you don't really see until something bad happens when the lights go out. But we build buildings is basically a simple way of putting it. We typically receive a set of documents that we bid off of, and we build the infrastructure within the building itself that'll light up the lights, provide power to TVs and receptacles and different things of that nature. The service that's coming from the utility company, we build that up. So we take basically an empty shell and make it have lights and power. So that's kind of us in a nutshell is what we do. We get into some interesting things where we get involved with fire alarm or audio visuals, but those are kinds of ones and twosies. We don't actually do that work, but those folks work with us and it kind of becomes integrated into one project. I guess what separates us from the competition, because we ask this a lot, like what is your niche as an electrical contractor, and we've worked real hard on not having a niche. A wire nut gets twisted the same way whether it's at a hospital, a school, a retail space, an office space. So our guys are really good at what they do. What we try to turn our focus to is the customer service, and where we think we excel is the customer service, doing what we're going to say when we're going to do it. No reason to kind of beat around the bush. We want to be honest and upfront and as real as possible, give them realistic guidelines and deadlines of what we're able to accomplish and when we can accomplish it. I think too often people say yes, 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 instead of standing back and making a plan and putting it together. So we specialize in making sure we do what we say we're going to do when we're going to do it. No. There's no secret sauce to what I do. I think other than people trust me and like me and have faith in what I'm saying is going to happen. Am I right 100% of the time? Absolutely not. Because there's times that you feel like you give direction and a clear understanding, and sometimes it doesn't come out that way. And there's a lot of self-reflection when you're in the position that I'm in. What could I have done differently? What could I have made more clear? Sometimes it isn't. Maybe it's just a a lost in translation sometimes. So it's not always clean cut and dry. What has caused the growth rate that we've had? I think one was timing, the economic boom that we hit from 16 to 19 till the pandemic basically hit. So that was outside of my undoing, or outside of my ability. That was really just a timing thing that I've got lucky on. So the first year we went from myself and 2 guys working on my basement to the end of the year, I think we were at 9 people. That wasn't terribly difficult to do. I already had a pretty good reputation within the company, so a lot of that business came by word of mouth. I did a really good job, I think, of developing relationships with the folks we did business with, and still do. So once they found out that I was on my own, word spread pretty fast, and I got a bunch of phone calls, and things just kind of fell into place. But we made a pretty good reputation that first year. We did what we said we did. We didn't miss any dates. Those guys worked their tails off, their butts off. I could still remember Gary, putting in 80, 90-hour work weeks to make the jobs turn out and get them done. Brandon, I can't even think of the amount of jobs he did. And Miguel was kind of the newer one, so we took it a little bit easier with him. But those 2 guys really worked their tails off. When Gary needed help, Brandon would go help him. If Brandon needed help, Gary would go help him. So we had a pretty good crew then. About a year into the company, we finally moved out of the basement. Pieces of wisdom that I would give is, if you're going to start your own company, you're going to work more than you could even imagine. I thought when I was a project manager at my old company that I worked pretty hard and tireless hours, and it's not even close to comparison. I think a lot of things too that people have a tendency to do, and when you're in this role as an owner or entrepreneur, I can't say that word very well, but a lot of people tend to pass the buck and say it was this or was that, and don't self-reflect of how they could have had impact on that particular situation or problem or outcome. So you've got to be willing to own it all, whether it's the good, the bad, the really great. I think there's always room for improvements. Don't hesitate if you've got this feeling that you want to do it. And I'm all for thinking about it and strategizing it and really being 100% about what you're going to do. Don't come in there and be 50% about it and then jump off the ledge and figure out why you didn't fail. So have some faith in what you're doing. Put in the time, put in the energy to figure out what's it going to take or what's involved. But if you're at that point, your pivotal point of whether I want to do it or not, I'd say take that step and do it. Is don't try to be the guy that knows it all. I think too often people are prideful in thinking that they need to be the guy in the room with all the information and all the answers. And it's okay to say, I don't know, I'm not sure. Get a core group of people around you that are smarter than you. Always rely on someone that's a professional in that. I've got an insurance guy that I call when it comes to insurance things. I'm not going to study that part or understand that part. I'll call the guy and say, this is what I've got, tell me what I need to do. So it's developing those relationships, just not that's beneficial to your company, but that's, from a revenue perspective or profitability perspective. It's getting the guys that are going to give you the right advice about how to proceed or something, or at least give you in touch with the right person that's been down that road before. So I think surrounding yourself with people that are smarter than you is a big piece of why we've been successful. The CPA firm that I use right now, who I love to death, and I think has been a great part of where we're at today, came from a simple conversation that I had with one of my fire alarm buddies. We made the move on an accounting software I was telling him about it. He's like, oh yeah, I use the same software. So if you're making that kind of change, if you're going from that accounting software and making that kind of change, you need to talk to these CPA folks. At that point, I was using a guy that was recommended to me, and I felt like he did a good job, but I didn't know what I was missing. So I always say, lean on people, and don't be afraid to hear a sales pitch, because you never know when it's something that's going to really benefit you.